Let the world outside grow quiet. Let the only sound be the gentle rhythm of your breath, and allow yourself to be carried away, not to a land of fantasy, but to a place of quiet, fierce reality. Picture a postcard-perfect mountain town blanketed in the deep, silent snow of a Colorado Christmas Eve. The town is named Pinecrest, and on its most coveted street, Evergreen Lane, stands a timber-framed mansion, its windows ablaze with light against the violet dusk. Inside, a scene of curated perfection unfolds. A 12-foot spruce glimmers in one corner. A fire crackles in a river-stone hearth. The air is thick with the scent of mulled wine, roast goose, and beeswax candles. Laughter, polished and assured, rings out. This is the home of the Prescott family, and tonight they are holding their annual Christmas Eve gala. But our story does not begin inside this fortress of warmth. It begins at its edge, where the glow of the windows falls upon undisturbed snow. A taxi departs, its red taillights shrinking into the flurry. Left alone, standing knee-deep in a drift she did not expect, is Eleanor Vance. Eleanor is 62. Her silver hair is swept into an efficient twist. Her face is lined not with fragility, but with the kind of resilience earned through decades of teaching others how to stand their ground. For 35 years, she was Sensei Vance, founder of the Mountain Dojo, a place where she taught not just karate, but the quiet, unshakable power of self-possession. She wears a worn leather jacket over a thick sweater, and her boots are meant for traction, not fashion. She has come unannounced, a surprise for her only child, her daughter, Amelia. The plan was simple, to wrap her arms around the girl she hadn't seen in 8 months, to see her smile, to share a cup of cocoa by a fire. A mother's simple, desperate pilgrimage. She stamps her boots, her breath pluming in the air, and looks toward the house. The walkway is a smooth, pristine canvas of white. No shovel has touched it. No welcoming light burns on the porch. Yet through the great bay window, she can see the tableau. Charles Prescott, Gregory's father, holds a snifter of brandy like a scepter. Penelope, his wife, laughs, a sound like tinkling ice. Their daughter Bianca is there, along with assorted aunts, uncles, and well-heeled friends. Gregory, her son-in-law, stands near the fireplace, gesturing broadly with a wine glass, the picture of a young patriarch. But where is Amelia? Eleanor's eyes scan the room again, her maternal radar pinging with alarm. She takes a step closer, her boot sinking deep, and then she hears it. Not laughter, but a soft, rhythmic sound, a chattering, the helpless biological clatter of teeth against teeth. She turns her head, following the sound to the deep shadows of the wraparound porch. There, wedged between a frozen rhododendron and the cold clapboard wall, in a fragile-looking wrought iron chair, sits her daughter. Amelia is hunched into a ball, wearing only a thin, long-sleeved linen tunic and leggings. Her feet are bare in sodden ballet flats. Her arms are locked around her shins, her forehead pressed to her knees, and her entire body is convulsing with violent, uncontrollable tremors. A human candle, guttering in the wind. Time stops. The festive music from inside warps into a sinister hum. The golden light from the window becomes a cruel spotlight. Amelia. The name is torn from Eleanor's throat, less a word than a prayer of horror. In 3 long strides, she is on the porch. She drops her small duffel bag into the snow. She yanks off her heavy, sheepskin-lined jacket and envelops her daughter. The contrast is shocking. Amelia's skin is so cold it burns Eleanor's hands. "Mom?" The voice is a moth's wing, frail and broken. Amelia lifts her head. Her face is bluish pale, her lips tinged with violet. Her eyes, once the color of warm honey, are wide and glazed with a shock so deep it looks like vacancy. "I'm here, my heart, I'm here." Eleanor's voice is a low, steady chant, the voice she used to coach a terrified student through a first breakfall. She rubs Amelia's back, her arms, trying to spark circulation, but her own hands are beginning to shake with a fury that generates its own terrible heat. From inside, a burst of laughter erupts, Gregory's, loud and booming, followed by the deeper chuckle of his father. The sound is a slap. Cradling Amelia, who is now a dead weight of cold and shock, Eleanor turns. She looks through the window. They are toasting, glasses raised, faces flushed with warmth and wine and their own magnificent company, and her daughter is a discarded ornament, freezing on the porch. Something hard and final crystallizes in Eleanor's chest. It is not just anger, it is a vow, forged in the cold, written in the tremors of her child's body. She half carries, half drags Amelia to the front door. It is, unsurprisingly, unlocked, a testament to the Prescotts' insulated sense of security. She kicks it open. The scene inside does not so much stop as curdle. The jazz carol stutters on for a beat before someone kills it. 20 faces turn toward the doorway, expressions morphing from festive surprise to annoyance, then to a cold, defensive disdain. Eleanor stands there, a winter specter. Snow melts in her hair. Her daughter, wrapped in a jacket far too big, sags against her. They drip melting ice on the priceless Persian rug. Penelope Prescott is the first to speak. She sets her wineglass down with a precision that speaks of immense irritation. "Eleanor, this is a dramatic entrance. We were in the midst of a family toast." Her voice is the sound of velvet over steel. Eleanor's gaze sweeps the room, the groaning table, the roaring fire, the children in their Christmas finery now staring with open mouths. She looks back at Penelope. "My daughter," Eleanor's voice, though quiet, carries to every corner of the silent room, "was in the midst of hypothermia, on your porch, while you toasted." The journey to this frozen doorstep began in a very different kind of heat. Just that afternoon, Eleanor was in a stiflingly warm gymnasium in Denver, the air thick with the smell of sweat and determination. She was concluding a week-long self-defense intensive for a group of social workers. Her final lesson was always the same. The most vulnerable target is often the spirit. Protect that first. On the flight to Aspen, a small plane buffeted by mountain winds, she'd felt a gnawing unease. She'd called Amelia 3 times. No answer. Texts went unread. Probably busy with last-minute preparations, she'd told herself, silencing the old, familiar worry that had been her companion for the last 2 years, ever since Amelia's first miscarriage and the subtle chilling of her voice during their weekly calls. The taxi ride from the airport through Pinecrest was a slow crawl behind streams of families headed to candlelight services. The town was a diorama of Christmas cheer. It was then, at a clogged intersection, that she saw him. Leo, Officer Leo Chen, once a scrawny, bullied teenager who had found his spine and his smile in her dojo. Now he was directing traffic, his posture confident, his wave firm. She'd rolled down the window. "Sensei," he'd called, his face breaking into a grin. But as she told him she was surprising Amelia for Christmas, the grin had faltered, just a flicker, a slight tightening around his eyes. "The Prescott place, huh?" he'd said, his voice careful. "Well, Merry Christmas. Drive safe." He'd patted the roof of the taxi, his gaze lingering a moment too long, full of an unspoken warning that had settled in her gut like a stone. Now that stone was a mountain. In the Prescott's grand living room, the silence she created is broken by Gregory. He steps forward, his face a mask of affronted authority. "Eleanor, you're overreacting," he states, as if announcing a legal precedent. "Amelia needed a moment. She gets overwhelmed. It's emotional volatility. We gave her space." He doesn't even look at his wife. "Space?" Eleanor's voice is dangerously calm. She guides Amelia to a velvet settee near the door, propping her up, keeping a hand on her icy cheek. "You gave her a death sentence. A few more minutes and I'd be calling an ambulance, not interrupting your party." Charles Prescott rises. He is a tall man, used to the room adjusting to his height. Eleanor, you are a guest here, albeit an uninvited one. You do not understand the complexities of this household. Amelia has struggled to adapt to her responsibilities. Sometimes consequences, even natural ones like a chill, can be instructive. The clinical cruelty of his words steals the air from the room. Instructive, like Amelia is a poorly trained pet. Bianca, Gregory's sister, lets out a sharp, derisive laugh from the dining table. God, she's always so sensitive, cries if you look at her wrong. It's exhausting. Eleanor looks from Charles's cold dignity to Bianca's petty malice, and finally to Gregory's impatient embarrassment. She sees it now with horrifying clarity. A system. A quiet, gaslit engine of degradation designed to break her daughter's spirit by convincing her she deserved the cold. She thinks of the phone calls. The first miscarriage, when Amelia sobbed, "Gregory said maybe it's for the best, we weren't really ready." The second, when she whispered, "His mother said my body might not be built for it." The third, after which Amelia didn't call for a month, and when she did, her voice was flat, empty. "It's fine, Mom. Really, don't worry." Amelia had stopped talking about her art, stopped mentioning her friends. Her world had shrunk to this house, and this house had found her wanting. Eleanor kneels in front of the settee, blocking Amelia from their view. She takes her daughter's frozen hands between her own, which are calloused and warm. "Amelia, look at me." It's a soft command. Amelia's glassy eyes slowly focus on her mother's face. A single tear, astonishingly warm, traces a path from the chill on her cheek. "Can you walk if I help you?" A tiny, almost imperceptible nod. "Good." Eleanor stands, turning her back on the Prescotts as if they have already ceased to matter. She pulls Amelia to her feet, wraps an arm firmly around her waist. "Where do you think you're going?" Penelope's voice is sharp now, the polite veneer gone. "This is her home. Her place is here." Eleanor turns at the doorway. The warmth of the room feels oppressive, toxic. She looks not at Penelope, but at Gregory. "Her place," Eleanor says, her voice low and clear, "is anywhere she is treated with basic human kindness. You have forfeited the right to define her place. You lost it the moment you valued your warmth over her life." She walks out into the cleansing, bitter cold of the Christmas Eve night, supporting her daughter's weight. She does not look back. The slammed door behind them is a period at the end of their sentence. The narrative deepens, becoming a story of recovery and investigation. Eleanor does not take Amelia to a hotel. She drives her old, reliable SUV to the opposite side of Pinecrest, to a modest A-frame cabin nestled at the tree line. This is her sanctuary. The air inside is cold but still, smelling of pine sap and old books. She builds a fire in the stone hearth, its crackle the first honest sound of the evening. She tends to Amelia with methodical care of a medic. Warm, sweet tea, dry clothes, her own soft flannel pajamas. She wraps her in a quilt her own mother made, and then she simply holds her on the couch, rocking slightly, as Amelia finally, safely, falls apart. The sobs are silent at first, then grow into great heaving waves that seem to pull her insides out. Eleanor holds her through all of it, whispering the same 3 words: "I am here." The next morning, Christmas Day, a knock knocks on the cabin door. It is Leo, out of uniform, holding a bag of pastries and a look of profound relief. "I heard," is all he says. He's heard from a neighbor who saw Eleanor's dramatic exit. He's heard the whispers that have circulated for months. He sits at the small oak table and tells Eleanor what the town carefully doesn't say, that Charles Prescott's influence is vast, that Gregory is his polished clone, and Amelia had become a ghost in her own community. With Amelia's fragile permission, Eleanor begins to document everything: the timeline of miscarriages and the chilling reactions, the slow erosion of Amelia's finances, the joint account drained for family investments, the small trust from her father redirected, the isolation,
friends who stopped calling after, they later admit, the Prescotts made concerned comments about Amelia's unstable moods. Eleanor contacts a lawyer in Denver, a woman named Miriam Thorne, whose reputation for tackling powerful, abusive families is legendary. Miriam listens, her face growing grimmer. She says, "It's a classic pattern of coercive control and psychological abuse, but Eleanor, they have money, social capital, and a judge in Charles's pocket. This will be a war of attrition. They will paint Amelia crazy. Are you prepared for that?" "We are," Eleanor says, though her heart clenches. She is preparing for a legal battle. She is preparing her daughter for a trial by fire. The divorce filing is a grenade tossed into the quiet world of Pinecrest society. The Prescott response is swift and brutal. Their lawyers paint Amelia a depressed, manipulative leech, exaggerating marital spats into abuse, trying to extort money from a good family. They subpoena her therapy records, which her ethical therapist fights. They hire a private investigator to dig into Eleanor's life.
The trial is held in the county courthouse, a place that feels like an extension of Charles Prescott's domain. Amelia, fortified by months of therapy and her mother's steadfast presence, takes the stand. She speaks softly but clearly about the comments, the isolation, the Christmas Eve. Gregory's lawyer cross-examines her with theatrical pity, suggesting her grief over the miscarriages has warped her perception, that she is prone to hysterical fantasies. The crucial piece of evidence is the testimony of Bianca's daughter, Chloe. The sharp-eyed 11-year-old, burdened by guilt, gives a sealed deposition about the constant, mean jokes her family made about Aunt Amelia and provides the tablet with its damning audio recording. But the Prescott legal team pounces. The recording was made by a minor without consent. The judge, an old friend of Charles's, rules it inadmissible. He dismisses the claims of psychological abuse as marital discord, and in dividing assets, sides overwhelmingly with Gregory, citing his greater financial contribution. The gavel falls. It is a crushing legal defeat. On the courthouse steps, Gregory approaches. The veneer is back, polished to a high gloss of triumph. "I tried to warn you, Eleanor. You can't fight a system you don't understand. You're just a fitness instructor. And Amelia," he glances at her, a flicker of that old disdain, "needs serious help we were apparently too generous to provide." Eleanor feels Amelia flinch beside her. She sees Leo, now in uniform on crowd control, his knuckles white on his belt. The old fire, the one that could power a spinning hook kick through a board, surges in her veins. For a second, the disciplined master vanishes, and only the mother remains, feral and protective. But then Amelia's hand slips into hers. It is no longer icy, it is warm, and it squeezes with a new, quiet strength. Eleanor takes a breath that fills her lungs with cold, clean mountain air, not the stifling perfume of the courtroom. "You won a piece of paper, Gregory. You kept your money and your father's good name, but you lost something you can never get back, and you don't even know what it is. You lost the right to call yourself a man." She turns her back on him, leading Amelia away. The legal battle is over. But Eleanor knows the real war, the war for her daughter's soul, is just entering a new phase. The final act, a quiet, powerful victory. The loss in court is, paradoxically, a liberation. Freed from the draining fight, Amelia and Eleanor pour their energy into building, not battling. Amelia's healing is slow, non-linear. Some days she paints fiercely, canvases filled with stormy grays and blues that gradually give way to streaks of gold and green. Other days she can only sit by the window and watch the chickadees at the feeder. Leo becomes a steady, grounding presence. He doesn't try to fix her, he simply shows up. He splits firewood for the cabin, fixes the leaky faucet, and one day brings over a rescued skittish greyhound.
The dog, named Ghost, attaches himself to Amelia with a silent, understanding devotion. Their long, quiet walks through the silent woods become a daily ritual. Eleanor watches the transformation. She sees the color return to Amelia's cheeks, not from a blush of shame, but from the sun and the wind. She hears her laugh again, a real laugh at one of Leo's terrible jokes. The hollows under her eyes begin to fill. A year after the Christmas Eve on the porch, Amelia hosts a small exhibition at the local library. The paintings are entitled the Thaw series. They are stark, beautiful, and unflinching. One depicts a single bare chair on a snowy porch, but from the seat a vibrant, impossible vine is growing, cracking the wood, reaching for the sun. Another shows a heart made of ice, with a tiny, fierce flame burning steadily at its core. The people of Pinecrest come, not the Prescott's crowd, but the librarians, the shopkeepers, the other artists, Leo's colleagues. They stand quietly before the paintings. They don't just see art, they see a testimony. The story of the Christmas Eve exile has become local legend, and the paintings confirm its truth in a way no court transcript ever could. Charles Prescott's name is quietly removed from a planned community center wing. Gregory's law practice remains, but the family firm aura is tarnished. They still live in the big house on Evergreen Lane, but the town now looks past them. Their victory was a castle built on ice, and the spring sun of public judgment is slowly melting its foundations. One evening in early winter, Eleanor sits in her cabin. Amelia is in the small studio loft, painting. Leo is by the fire, teaching Ghost a new trick. The room is warm, filled with the scent of stew and pine. Amelia comes downstairs, wiping her hands on a rag. She looks at her mother, then at Leo, then at the dog sprawled contentedly on the rug. "I was thinking," she says, her voice clear, "the dojo's old community room, we could turn it into a proper studio, not just for me, for art therapy, for people who need a place to remember how to make something beautiful." Eleanor looks at her daughter. She sees not the shattered girl on the porch, nor the defeated woman in the courtroom. She sees a creator, a survivor, a woman who has taken the broken pieces of herself and fused them into something stronger and more beautiful than the original. Her victory was not over the Prescotts, it was over the winter they tried to impose on her soul. Eleanor smiles, a deep, peaceful smile that reaches her eyes. "I think," she says, "that is a perfect use for the space." And so, as you drift towards sleep, remember this lesson from the mountains. The deepest cold is not outside, but in the hearts of those who choose to close their doors. And the most enduring warmth is not from a roaring, exclusive hearth, but the small, persistent flame you guard within your own spirit, and the gentle, unwavering light you offer to another. True strength is not always a roar that shatters silence. Often it is the quiet, persistent act of gathering your loved one from the cold, of tending the ember of their dignity until it can blaze again on its own. It is knowing that some battles are lost in courtrooms, only to be won in the quiet spaces of the heart, in the rebirth of a laugh, in the courage to paint a new world onto a blank canvas. May you carry your own warmth. May you be a sanctuary for those who are cold. And may you sleep knowing that the fiercest love is a fire that no winter, no cruelty can ever truly extinguish. Rest deeply and peacefully. Good night.